Hey guys, what's up? Itchla coming back to ya with another episode of Car Rides Witchla, and it looks like we are here stuck here. So I'm not going to be moving right now, but yeah, I don't know. I'm just seeing a bunch of vehicles in front of me, so I can't do anything. So we kind of wasted a minute, but I can't do anything about that really. It's just this hasn't happened before. So just sitting tight, just sitting tight, I suppose. Do I have anything to mention? I don't really think so. Today again, relatively well, no, you know what? I'm not going to I actually do have something to talk about. So a lot of times when I talked about my theory of isolation, I don't know that it was described properly. I think that when I bring things up, I wasn't really explaining a lot of the explanation, which is that it's kind of urbanization in a way that is causing the problems that we face since yeah, I reference past civilizations, and the thing about past civilizations is they didn't have the same types of social fabric. So really it's within modernity you achieve and are led to a hyper socialized state that you really would not experience if you were in a small community, for example. I probably mentioned that there were some nuances, but I don't know if I really articulated it this correctly. So that is something of note to keep in mind. Yeah, and I'm noticing I really don't understand what's going on because I've never been stuck here for this long. I've never been stuck here this long. It's crazy. I've just never really been stuck here this long. It's like that was weird because that was like a whole 3 minutes pretty much, and it's just never been like I don't even understand. I guess it's just how it goes sometimes, but yeah, that's never happened to me before. I've never seen it get that bad. But yeah, I didn't really mention that how I think the problem is it's people are isolating as a response to chaotic and crazy socialization. So it's socialization, I guess even more precisely, socialization without purpose, without meaning, without um, importance. It's the fact that we are thrust into a novelty of socialization. And how I think of this as is you think about you go to school and you make friends in second grade, and then you come back at third grade and now you have a completely different class. And then you come back at fourth grade, you have a completely different class. Now, sometimes some people are fortunate enough to keep in touch with the people they know, but not everybody does. I think more and more as time goes on, these kind of crazier social circumstances keep emerging where some people don't keep in touch. People go off to different colleges, and then that's it. This is extremely common. And then again, then you make friends at college because, you have to social there. Or then you have your job. Then you get a new job after college. Then you have to socialize at the job. You see how it's boom, boom, boom. You have to keep remaking friends, and they're very temporary. These friendships don't last. They're temporary in nature. And it shows because we lose touch with what we're really and what humans experienced for most of our time, which we experienced consistency. We experienced consistency. We saw people, we knew people, everyone was familiar, everybody knew each other. It was not that complicated of a social fabric. It just was not a complicated social fabric. You kind of knew people. I almost think in my head when you see the way a movie is presented, typically even within an urban environment, a good constructed movie is going to have routine characters that you see. Maybe one person lives in a certain house, your neighborhood, right? When you think about like the ideal neighborhood, it's who this person is, who that person is. You know these people. You're familiar with them. You see someone out in public and you know who they are. It's nice. Now, our generation, or I don't know, even younger maybe, now you get to a point where it's stressful when you see somebody it's scary, it's weird, and I think that is just not normal. I don't really think it's something that was very common in the past, and it could... I'm not sure what explains it. I'm not sure exactly what explains it, but I don't think that it's over socialization that's the problem. I think that's glossing over what the primary problem is. I think it's over socialization of strangers. I mean, think about if you recognized every car on the road, if you knew every single car, every single driver, as these people I'm seeing pass by, and I just knew everybody well, and I recognized them, everybody had their own distinct car, and it was all familiar and all good. Wouldn't that be a totally different experience? Don't you think the way we witness and experience car accidents and how we treat other drivers would be different? I guess if you saw your enemy, you wouldn't be too kind towards them. You might try to hit them. But no, you get what I'm trying to say. I mean, imagine if the people on the road were your friends. I think you would drive differently. I think your consciousness would care a little bit more, but it's not. It's strangers, and the way that we're punished, it's very abstract. It's not human. It's cold. You get in an accident, and then you're paying for insurance. It's how we're organized. We're organized by money. It's how we're organized. It's what keeps us together. But, when you're really friends with someone, it's not money that keeps you together. It's your friendship. Someone, you recognize their car, usually wave at them. It's fun. It's nice. It's not. And you can imagine if there were a few cars and there weren't that many cars on the road and you knew everybody, I think things would feel a lot different. The problem is the world keeps getting bigger, but our minds are not able to hold that many friends or have that many social connections. So it's very overstimulating and it's overwhelming to us. We can't handle it. It becomes a mess. And so as a result of that, we want space. We think if we have more time alone that this would be the solution. I don't think it's the solution at all. I think it's that we need more consistent, quality, familiar socialization. That's what we need. Consistent, quality, and familiar. We need people who we know and we recognize. Not a bunch of strangers in a giant city. Not a bunch of cars on the road. You know, there's just like hundreds or thousands of random cars on the road. And I know you might be able to say this would be impossible to pull off in a modern society, but it isn't. If you think about it, part of the thing I've already said, it's already true. It's already completely lines up with this. Why should it be allowed for a person to live in an area where they have an hour commute to work every day? It completely doesn't make any sense. I think that you would have to sort people into pockets so that, and everybody within the pocket would have a loosely similar routine. You know, you could organize people off of chronotype and keep the system exactly the same way it is, but, you know, have everybody within certain, let's say all the night owls live here and all the morning larks live there. And everybody in between, but we're sorted based on compatibility. Then you would see the same cars every day at the same time. And if all of these people just worked at the same company their whole lives, it wouldn't be much change. You would see the same cars, you would recognize them, and there would be so much more meaning. And I think, again, there would likely be less accidents. But instead, it's too much. You see tons of random cars with random people. You don't know who's inside. But you would be somewhat familiar with people after a long enough time. You know, if you see the same exact cars every day and they live in your neighborhood, like that's kind of the thought experiment. Imagine everybody you saw on the road lived in the same neighborhood as you. Because again, let's say your designated time to show up for work was the same time. Everybody lived in the same neighborhood. All these people in this pocket, they all worked at the same place. And everything was, again, very organized. I think you would drive differently because you know the people you're around. But this idea of mixing us all up and having us all over the place is the primary problem. It's that we go home to a place where we don't see anybody from work. So, you know, we can go home and drive like a maniac and do all this crazy stuff, but then go to work and act like you're a good person. And nobody would know. Nobody knows anything about you. It's all very anonymous. This is why I think, and I guess why I articulated in the past, that surveillance and a surveillance monitoring system, it's a necessity with things as individualistic or chaotic as they are. But I still want to lean on to this idea of this organized micro communities as being the optimal situation. It would be the same as at the bus stop. You know, certain people have to go to school at a certain time or work at a certain time. You would see the same exact people every day. And I think eventually the idea would be that you would be somewhat familiar with them. They wouldn't be so scary after a while. And you would have some kind of a sense of community. It's kind of the main point of what I'm saying. That's really, this is it, you know? It's the main point. But I've just thought of that whole micro community thing now. That just came to me. I haven't thought of that before. That wasn't like one of my theories or ideas. I mean, it is now. It's a good idea. I really think it's a good idea. Because I think that's the root of the problem. I was just thinking about that. I mean, everything just becomes such a blur when you don't know the people you're socially interacting with. When, you know, even driving, it is like a form of social interaction in a way. And if you don't know who the person in front of you or behind you is, then, you know, why would you care? You're just going to be zoned out and just trying to get home. There's nothing for you to care about. It's very strange, you know, when you actually think about it. I think so, at least. It's so strange to think about the way things are. And again, money kind of works to mold everybody together, but the problem is when it's not a fair system, I think it causes a lot of problems. When everybody is molded by money, but certain people have a bunch of extra money and other people don't, that's kind of when it becomes a problem. I guess in theory, money could be the bridge connecting everybody within modern society and modern circumstances, you know? I think that's entirely possible. That it could be the bridge connecting everybody. But I still think my idea is what stands, is that when you go into public life, you shouldn't really have to deal with that many strangers. You should minimize the amount of strangers you know. And I'm sure there's a huge correlation of happiness when it comes to this stuff. I'm sure. There's just like a huge connection, and you can just... Right? I mean, I'd have to imagine when I notice people who are happier people, it's like people who go to church and they say hi to people, they socialize with people there when they're out in public. Like, it's these localized areas and people who are familiar with everybody in the area. That's what, and it's such a good feeling too. I know it might be numb to a lot of people, but I've always felt it. And I can still remember the times that people would socialize and talk to me about things when I'm out and about, when I'm walking. You know, because I walk. And the people who've talked to me, like, it sticks in you. It's very memorable. I think people become numb to a lot of this stuff, though, as a means of survival. It's difficult to hold on to what the heart wants and what the mind wants when it seems impossible to obtain, and it's true. Most people, if you talk to them, it's likely that they've given up. They don't necessarily want to not care, but it's just so much easier to live in a way that is you're alone, and then you have technology as a vessel, as a channel, and then that's it. And then you don't have to worry about all the complexities of trying to make a friend. All the effort that it takes these days, all the extra effort that at one point it didn't take. At one point it was easy because it was likely back in the days of towns and villages, back in the days of towns, back in the days of villages or tribes, your job was obviously extremely localized, and you probably knew everybody in your tribe and you were happy. It's just the chaotic nature of the world that I think is what's getting to people. And so I suppose I'm stalling a bit because the main premise, the main point that I have is that I don't think people actually want to isolate at their core. They want to isolate because there's been too much chaotic socialization. But I think what people lack is consistent and familiar socialization. I think that is the pain. And in a way, school kind of destroys us in this regard. You know, you think about when you go to a school and you have a bunch of different teachers and people have the same teacher, it's immediately some kind of commonality. So easy to have a conversation. But then, like, if you don't have the same teacher, now all of a sudden, you know, there's you, right? Like, you kind of can't fit in. It's harder to converse. It's the same thing with movies. It's the same thing with TV shows. When you haven't witnessed the same thing as other people, it becomes difficult. It becomes very difficult to do a lot of this stuff. When there's no chaos, and you know, there really is no meaning. I guess it's something I wasn't really able to put my finger on, but to connect it with the idea that if other people don't notice and there isn't other people putting a value to things, of course there is an independent objective value. It's not like if everybody stopped valuing gold, it automatically becomes useless. You know, there are ways to objectively gauge things, and certain things are better than others. And it's impossible to deny that. But the problem is, for the most part, that things are tricky. It's that for the most part, things have such an immense extra added value when other people want them. Because other people want gold, now it's more valuable. Now you want it too. Because other people want this, you want it as well. Art's valuable that is listened to, that is consumed. Art that isn't watched or acknowledged. It could be really good art, but what kind of value is it really going to have? It really shouldn't have too much, ultimately. Because what if the greatest painting ever painted, nobody ever saw it or knew about it? And it just ended up getting, I mean, I know it's kind of unrealistic that that would happen, so maybe that's not the best example, but it's true. It's possible that there could be some work of art made by someone that is an amazing painting, but it just wasn't preserved in the way a lot of the other Renaissance artists drew things. That's like possible that you could have something completely lost. And then you have to like think about, where's the value of the art? If it was never really witnessed or never really acclaimed, much of the value is gone. When something isn't noticed, when we don't feel acknowledged, this is why people feel like their life has no purpose. And it's not just acknowledgement in the sense of somebody saying hi to you. Like I said, that doesn't really mean anything. You know, a random person saying hi, a random person being friendly. You remember it, but if you don't see that person ever again, it just ends up getting lost. It's really reoccurring people that matter. It's people who are always around and that they do a random act of kindness, but it's over and over again and it's the same face. Just things to think about, you know? But I really like this idea of the micro communities, the micro pockets, the micro neighborhoods. It could absolutely still work within a modern framework and paradigm. Absolutely. It would just take some organization, and a lot of people wouldn't want to do it, which is a shame. You'd probably have to, yeah, it just gets too hard because then a lot of people would say it's immoral to tell other people's, other people where they have to live. People just hate that. It really rubs people the wrong way. But as I've said, I mean, I really think it's something we're going to have to come to terms with pretty soon. This idea about autonomy and just, you know, what's actually best for us? Should we really be so fixated on freedom if we're making the worst choice? You know, maybe labeling it as a free will and an autonomy seizure axis is kind of a wrong way to put it. I think it's really just an optimization axis. It's just people should want to do the right thing, and we should be interested in that, not doing what we want. I guess, well, that's the whole thing of why it's pretty easy if you just eliminate the free will side of things, you just cut off the bad outcomes. You say, okay, well, you can't live this far from work. It makes things an awful lot easier. Because with free will, there's still going to be people who are going to make the wrong choice. And it just gets difficult when you try to calculate what right or wrong is, because there's a way to try to do it objectively. But then, GPT likes to remind me that a lot of things it's kind of impossible. And then some people have such a hard conviction opinion about things that it hits hard. Sorry, I just got lost in thought. Something very random and off topic. It's a shame we're not at the point yet where I think it's two things. It would be dominion over my thoughts that would change things. If I had full control, maybe I wouldn't be trying to have negative thoughts anymore. Because the things that I think of oftentimes, not all the time, but oftentimes it feels like what crosses my mind. And when I go silent, it's typically negative things pertaining to people I know, arguments I've had with them, things like that. And I don't want to say it because I've talked about before, I don't like to just make a bunch of stuff public. I'm really not interested in that. But the thing that is interesting that I'm just thinking of is that it's true. I shouldn't even really be dwelling on a lot of this stuff. I just shouldn't be dwelling on it. I shouldn't be having repetitive negative thoughts. It would be much better if I could break that cycle. It would be much better. But see, just then it was a bit of silence. That wasn't that wasn't some random negative mental interjection. That was just so it's not all the time. The goal would be though still is to have the mental or verbal control to just be able to talk constantly. And I suppose I was on easy mode for a majority of the show. I was just on easy mode. It was a new thing. I had so many fresh things to talk about. It was easier. But as I've said now, I have to mentally be okay with repeating myself because that trips me up a lot. But that's because other people always criticize me for repeating myself. But here it doesn't matter. So a lot of these, I think, are patterns that other people, I mean, this is a whole other thing to unpack. The way other people have reacted to what I've said. Now, what I said could have been correct, but if somebody was bored by it or offended by it, then chronically over time, people engineer you into acting a certain way. And ultimately, we each have varying strengths of rebellion. We each have different degrees of going with the flow and accepting what other people say about us and how other people treat us. It's really a spectrum. It's not, but we ultimately do get shaped. We do get shaped by what we see. The way people treat, I don't know why I said what we see. That was not, I was just concentrating on driving. We do get shaped by how people treat us, whether it's right or wrong. This is why, parents who treat their kids a certain way, it shapes their personality, and friends that treat their friends a certain way, enemies that treat their friends a certain way. It's all kinds of stuff you could get into and try to think about and unravel. There's just all kinds of stuff. I guess that you think about the parents thing, but when you think about it, every person in my life has affected me to this point now. It affects how I speak. And then the more I talk into a microphone, the more it's adjusting, it's explorative, it's able to experiment with freedom. And maybe it took me this long to realize instinctively some of these instincts can go. You don't really have to care about whether you're repetitive or not, because this is not another person that I guess I felt like my whole life I've had to be compromising and capitulating with people. And in a lot of my social relationships, that's how it's been. And in general, needing to mask, needing to avoid certain things. It's just how it's been. But at this point, it's different. It's a microphone. And so it's more reflective. You have a lot more time to eventually interpret things. You don't have somebody giving you their input, but their input could be wrong. You don't really know what they're getting at. There's really a lot that you could go on about this topic. But fortunately for me, it's almost time to go because I'm definitely ready for a break. And this week was good. This week was definitely a good week. The week went by fairly quick. It's good. It's been a good week. Yeah, I don't know where I was really going with that. Yeah, I don't really know what I'm gonna. All right. Well, It has been schla, and now it's time to buy schla. So, see ya schla.